Hello and welcome. You're watching the Global Reset right here on CNBC-TV18 Prime. This is, of course, the Angel Ionic Wealth Studios. Today, joining us in short order on the big global story from the U.S., of course, which is the MBS visit to the U.S. in Washington, to the White House, those visuals with President Trump coming in. He's going to be somebody who's going to analyze what all of that means. Rachel Ziemba is founder of Ziemba Insights, and she'll be with us shortly to take us through what that really means as we analyze some of those developments. Well, you know, that's, of course, in just a bit from now. But as always, before we do any of that, let me quickly get you up to speed with what's happened as far as financial markets go in the global news front so far. Stocks on Wall Street extended losses the previous session. Dow closed about 500 points lower. The S&P locked its longest slide since August. The fall was led by technology sector. Remember, S&P, NASDAQ, everything, of course, was lower by close on the day, but it was, of course, off the lows by quite a bit. About 60% of S&P stocks actually ended in the green, so that's important nuance, even as you look at some of these losses. You know, the pressure, of course, led by AI chip darling NVIDIA, which fell another 3%. NVIDIA, of course, reports numbers and earnings later tonight, post-U.S. market close. And of course, I mean, that showed up in some of the other fellow Magnificent Seven companies. Amazon was down 4%, Microsoft as well. Meanwhile, markets in Asia trading largely low, mirroring some of the moves as far as Wall Street is concerned. One notable exception is, of course, our market right here in India. The Nifty is up about 1/3%. Many of these other markets in Asia have been big beneficiaries of this AI trade. In India, I mean, that's not played out at all. You know, standing out so far. Well, there's another story that could shape market moves in months ahead. This, of course, comes as the U.S. President Donald Trump has told reporters that he was speaking with various people about the Federal Reserve Chairman's post and added that some unexpected candidates could replace the current chair, Jerome Powell, as his term ends in May 2026. Listen in.
Have you started the interviews for the Fed chair?
Yes.
Who have you interviewed?
I think I already know my choice.
Who is it?
Well, I liked him, but he's not going to take the job. He refused. You like Treasury better, right?
Much better, sir.
So we are talking to various people. And, I mean, frankly, I'd love to get the guy currently in there out right now.
Okay, well, his mind is made up, according to President Trump. President Trump's remarks on the Fed, of course, have already triggered ripples across political market circles. But on Capitol Hill, lawmakers have advanced another major development, one unrelated to economic policy, but deeply significant in terms of public perception, accountability, and many other things. The U.S. House of Representatives has passed the bill seeking the release of the Epstein files with a 427 to 1 vote. The Senate, in a rare show of unanimity, cleared it as well. The move follows months of pressure from survivors of Epstein's abuse, who've been demanding transparency and access to documents they say that they say are crucial for justice, and of course to expose many of the abusers in that sense. It's an important political story, which of course is playing out in the U.S., dividing even the MAGA camp, the Make America Great Again camp. Some say downright in half. The bill now, of course, heads to President Trump's desk for his signature, and it's going to be closely watched as well. Well, as that bill on Epstein file now moves to the president's desk, the White House was simultaneously the backdrop for another major diplomatic moment. U.S. President Donald Trump hosting Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, popularly known as MBS, the kingdom's de facto ruler, in a meeting aimed at deepening ties with Washington. For MBS, it's also part of an ongoing effort to reshape his global image, still shadowed by the 2018 killing of U.S.-based journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Take a look at this report.
U.S. President Donald Trump rolled out the red carpet Tuesday for Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. In his first White House visit in more than 7 years, Saudi Arabia's de facto ruler sought to further rehabilitate his global image after the 2018 killing of U.S.-based journalist Jamal Khashoggi, while deepening ties with Washington. During questions in the Oval Office, Trump defended bin Salman on the topic.
A lot of people didn't like that gentleman that you're talking about. Whether you like him or didn't like him, things happen, but he knew nothing about it, and we can leave it at that.
That effectively contradicts the conclusions of U.S. intelligence agencies, who concluded that bin Salman approved the capture or killing of Khashoggi. Bin Salman has denied ordering the operation, but acknowledged responsibility as the kingdom's de facto ruler. He also addressed the killing to reporters on Tuesday.
We've improved our system to be sure that nothing happened like that, and it's painful and it's a huge mistake, and we are doing our best that this doesn't happen again.
Topics discussed between the two leaders included security ties, civil nuclear cooperation, and multi-billion-dollar business deals with the kingdom. Trump announced an agreement that Saudi Arabia would invest $600 billion in the United States, while the Saudi Crown Prince promised to up that investment to $1 trillion.
And I want to thank you because you've agreed to invest $600 billion into the United States. And because he's my friend, he might make it $1 trillion, but I'm going to have to work on him. But it's 600. We can count on 600 billion, but that number could go up a little bit higher. Yes, sir. I don't know. We'll see. But we appreciate it very much. So Saudi is going to be investing at least $600 billion, and that means investments in plants, in companies, money on Wall Street, and what it really means for everybody that really counts is jobs, a lot of jobs. We have a lot of jobs. So I just want to thank you. We've been really good friends for a long period of time. We've always been on the same side of every issue.
It all underscores how much of a priority Trump has made of ties with Saudi Arabia, as uproar over Khashoggi fades. Andrew Lieber is a political science assistant professor at Tulane University.
I think the Trump administration is much more transactional with respect to Saudi Arabia. As with the first term for President Trump, there's really no emphasis on human rights. So that's much less of an obstacle for this relationship.
Trump also said on Tuesday that the U.S. would sell F-35 stealth fighter jets to Saudi Arabia, in a similar arrangement it has with Israel, in what Trump described as a defense agreement. The move marks a significant policy shift, which could alter the military balance in the Middle East.
Well, President Trump also said that Saudi Arabia was being designated as a major non-NATO ally. Listen in.
Tonight, I'm pleased to announce that we're taking our military cooperation to even greater heights by formally designating Saudi Arabia as a major non-NATO ally, which is something that is very important to them. And I'm just telling you now for the first time because I wanted to keep a little secret for tonight. I just heard him say, "Oh, that's nice. That's another point you won today." And signing a historic strategic defense agreement, which we just signed a little while ago. So congratulations at South Carolina.
Okay, as promised, let's bring in Rachel Ziemba, who is the founder of Ziemba Insights. Rachel, good to speak to you again. Thank you very much. You know, you've said that both sides have pitched this as a success, but what, according to you, is success for each party? I mean, for President Trump, it's the optics, and later perhaps translates to into reality all this investment which is touted. But for Saudi Arabia, perhaps a little more complicated. What's your sense?
Yeah, so I think Saudi Arabia came into this looking for, to upgrade the defense relationship. You talked about the F-35s. You talked to the major non-NATO ally means a little bit different depending on the countries. Saudi Arabia came to this meeting. Trump might have does definitely want Saudi Arabia to join the Abraham Accords. They haven't gotten there yet. Mohammed bin Salman made it clear that that's not going to happen without a path to a two-state solution. It's hard for Palestine. It's hard to see that in dynamic for the U.S. as well, and also for Saudi Arabia. They're looking for the U.S. to support their AI ambitions, right? The U.S. has already signed both nuclear agreement, but also been providing high-level chips to Saudi Arabia's neighbor, the United Arab Emirates. Saudi Arabia sees AI technology development as a key to that dynamic. Now, on the investment side, I think take this with a grain of salt. Both countries may have an interest in inflating that number, and any investments that Saudi Arabia makes in the U.S. are really going to be in sectors that they want to promote at home, in companies that might do technology transfer to Saudi Arabia. That could be a win-win, but we'll see how that plays out. Saudi Arabia, of course, continues to be an important trading partner for China as well, and is looking to reset its relationships also with countries like India, hoping to retain market share. So I see this as Saudi Arabia signaling to the U.S. how important, how important it sees those ties, and in the Gulf, they're very focused. They are, if anything, one of the U.S. partners more prepared than some others to engage in some transactional policy.
Uh, no, yeah, absolutely. You know, you brought up China, right? I mean, China remains Saudi Arabia's largest customer for oil, a source for tech investments. You think at some point, or maybe it's already demanded of Saudi, a more clearer kind of realignment, alignment? I mean, which side are you on? That kind of thing.
It's possible. I mean, I think from the Chinese perspective, they are, they continue to see Saudi Arabia not only as a source of energy, as a way to help maintain their energy diversification, right? China doesn't want to rely on any country for more than, say, 20% of the oil it imports. It doesn't want to get stuck as Europe did with Russian oil, for example, and over reliant on that one source. And as an importer of Chinese technology products, Saudi Arabia, all the MENA countries, really, and many countries around the world, their largest source of imports is China, and that's not going to change in the short term, even as Saudi Arabia is buying more equipment, from sort of from or at least designed in the United States, right? We talked a lot about purchases of high level chips. Those aren't made in China, but they're not made in the United States either. The ones we're talking about are mostly made in Taiwan. So, things are a little bit more complex there. China will be watching for what economic security agreements the US demands of Saudi Arabia. We saw in President Trump's agreements across Southeast Asia that some countries like Cambodia and Thailand and Malaysia signed maybe some blank checks that they could be asked to uh, add restrictive policy towards China. These are all countries that will be trying to hedge. But at present, I would see Saudi Arabia continuing to partner with China on some technology dynamics, including in the electric vehicle industry, as well at the same time they're partnering with the US. Now, we have seen Saudi Arabia make commitments that the AI ecosystem that they're trying to build with high-level US designed chips will not have Chinese components, will not have Chinese technology,
Right.
and so we might see that segregation.
Got that. Uh, you said security partnerships will be deferred, right? I mean, so where is this in that sense
Some of the
leave?
details, definitely.
Yeah. So those Abraham Accords, normalization with Israel. I mean, just your thoughts around that.
Yeah, so I think they took a big step today, one that had been in the cards since earlier, in the Trump administration. But ultimately, what we've seen is that the U.S. mostly full-throated support of Israel's policy in Gaza has led to a cooling of ties. Between Israel and even countries like the UAE that are members of the Abraham Accords. Saudi Arabia has endorsed, with some caveats, the Trump administration's plan in Gaza. But they really are looking for a pathway to a two-state solution. And that's really doesn't seem to be on the cards for Israel at this point. Now, that being said, there continues to be back channel negotiations between Saudi Arabia and Israel. At this meeting and before, we saw Saudi officials talk about how they were trying to facilitate, Iran coming back to the negotiating table. The Saudis are looking to reduce threats and challenges in the neighborhood, but there are a number of areas that the Saudis have sort of convinced the U.S. to shift their policy. You've seen President Trump's full-throated support of the new Syrian government. Even last week, the Saudis have been large proponents of that, along with Turkey. We've seen a shift even in policy towards Lebanon. The Saudis and the U.S. have more areas they're working on together here.
Rachel, we'll leave it there for now, and we'll track what more comes of this meeting, and we'll have you back. Thank you very much for joining us for this quick conversation, and really appreciate your
Thank
time
you.
here on CNBC TV18 Prime. Well, I think what we're going to do is take a quick commercial break here. We'll come back in just a bit from now, and an interesting conversation about deals here in India. One of the top investment bankers, Vishal Kampani, joins us from the sidelines of the JM Financial Conference, which is being held here in Mumbai. I caught up with him. Coming up. Welcome back to CNBC TV18 Prime. You're watching The Global Reset. Earlier, I spoke with Vishal Kampani, who is the Vice Chair and Managing Director at JM Financial, on the sidelines of the JM Financial India Exchange 2025. Vishal Kampani and JM Financial, of course, are one of India's top bankers, involved in everything from IPOs, M&A, restructuring, what have you. Pretty much in the center across the capital market activity. I began by asking Vishal what themes he expected from the event which kicked off today, and this is that conversation.
India very clearly is one of the dominant growth engines in the world, and investors are very interested to hear what's happening in India. And if you have a longer term horizon, which matters, 3 to 5 years, there is no question you won't spend time on India and understand the growth prospects here. And also this time, in the last 5 years, we've seen almost every sector having outperformance. It's not about making a bet on IT services or banking. We've seen growth across sectors. So it makes it a very interesting and exciting market.
Last 1 year has kind of been strange because there's a bull market in so many pockets of the market, so many stocks, but no bull market as far as the index is concerned. Is that the right way to characterize it? It doesn't feel like the market is going bonkers with gains at an index level, but stocks.
Yeah, I think, the disappointment has been in earnings growth. I think the expectations last year were around maybe a 15-16% kind of earnings growth, and the number is closer to 8 or 9%. Right? So there has been a bit of a disappointment, and that is a primary reason, I think, why you've seen FPI selling. Right? So it's more of earnings-driven selling. At the same time, you've had massive buying from mutual funds, all led by retail inflows through SIPs into funds, which has been able to sort of sustain the index where it is. So in fact, without that, markets could have been lower this year. Yeah? But again, as I said, the word is horizon, right? What's your horizon? If you're really a long-term investor, which retail in India is proving to be a smart investor using SIPs. Taking a long-term view on equities, your returns will be very good as long as the economy is growing at 6-7%.
You think we should, that statement, which is retail has been the smart money, we should preface that statement with the question, only time will tell, or no?
Of course,
no need.
Time will tell, but when you see, do you see any big macro risk in India, right? No, it's hard to tell. Look at corporate balance sheets, right? Completely delevered. Right? You look at India government, right? You don't see any macro risk. There's stability. Foreign exchange reserves are almost 700 billion, right? Consumer, there are parts of the sector in consumer which is slowing down, but it's also slowing down because of competitive intensity, right? So I think leverage in the retail or the individual segment is not that high. So there is no real macro risk that we worry about, right? Our banks are strong, our NBFCs are strong. So the financing, the credit side is strong. So where is the downside going to come from, right? And full credit to the government. We did not do any kind of, overspending during COVID. No kind of distribution of money at the center level. Right? So I think full credit, and that's why you're seeing the strong macro balance sheet.
But earnings growth is to pick up, right? I think this will be the third year where nominal growth is under 10%. So that's got to pick up. And hopefully that will, with all what has happened with cuts.
I think, so somewhere you've also seen a bit of a reset post-COVID. You've seen many sectors fly during COVID and do very well. And you're seeing a bit of that reset in terms of earnings. Maybe seasonality is coming back, right? So many of these factors are coming together, and therefore you've seen that over the last 6 quarters or so, you've seen a bit of a decline in earnings. But I think as a house, we are quite positive. I think next year, which is 26, 27, you should be seeing close to 14 to 16% growth in earnings, which I think will able to give you better returns from the Nifty as well as some of the smaller indexes over the next 18 months.
Vishal, you guys have been part of some of the largest issuances, IPOs, secondaries, blocks, I mean everything basically, right? The level of activity is unprecedented. Now, the argument sometimes which is made, and I think it's right, that it's the question, what came first, demand or supply? All the supply would not come if there was not enough demand to absorb it. But at some level, you've got to ask the question whether this is almost an en masse transfer of ownership to retail in that sense, right? And all this selling. How do you think about it?
Yeah, I would think that today India is in a place where we have a lot of different pools of capital operating at the same time, right? So where is this surge of IPO activity coming from? It's largely coming from the investments of private equity. You see, last 6-7 years, we've got almost $350-400 billion of private equity inflow into the country. Assuming these smart investors want to grow their money at 15%. Right? Over the next 5 to 7 years, that's almost $800 billion to $1 trillion of exit value if these companies have been able to grow at 15%, right? So, and a significant portion of that, maybe 25 to 30%, right, will find exits through the capital markets. Some part of that will be a private equity to private equity transfer. You've been seeing that, right? You've seen some home finance companies which have changed hands within the PE universe itself, right? And another 1/3 could be strategic M&A. So there are lots of pools of capital.
Although strategic M&A has been kind of, it's not that large, right?
No, it won't, because the multiples are very high right now, right? So people would prefer to invest in their own capacity than buying. Having said that, there's almost $50 billion worth of deals that have happened year to date. So deals are happening.
So if you divide look at these three categories of, the way to monetize private equity, early investors, etc. The top one, the biggest one is IPOs.
Of course. Right now is IPOs. But I'll tell you what happens is when you return capital back to these investors, they will come back with more.
Absolutely.
So they will invest again in younger enterprises, newer companies, and that will fuel another growth, right, for the IPOs and the secondary markets over the next 5 to 7 years.
But you just said that strategic M&A is not happening as a way to exit because multiples are too high. That multiple, all this stuff is being bought by retail at those multiples at the end of the day.
I think what's happened is a couple of things. Indian corporates have become careful in terms of doing M&A. You see, the returns from M&A generally in the last 15 years have not been great. So Indian corporates who are buying also have high multiples. So that kind of defeats the argument. I mean, if I want to buy a company at a higher multiple, if I'm trading at a higher multiple, I have the currency to pay for it, right? But people are saying on the absolute side, if I'm paying 25 times earnings for something, am I really going to make those returns? So which is a very conservative and smart way of looking at it. Having said that, there are lots of sectors where you can find value, right? I mean, you've seen banking. I mean, I was amazed to see that, RBL raised more equity, right, than their net worth there, and from a, UAE player. So, which is a very interesting transaction, and I think it redefines the way we look at our banking sector in India. This is actually control transfer of a bank to a foreign bank, which has not happened.
60%, right?
Yes.
No, 60%.
And an open offer.
Yeah, an open offer.
Well, that's a slice of the conversation I had with Vishal Kampani, and you can go online and check out the full one. It's a wrap of this edition of the Global Reset. Thank you very much for staying with us. More comes up on the other side.